Hello YouTube, Marielle here. Today it's Christmas Day, Sunday the 25th of December 2016, and I would like to share with you something, a letter that I wrote, almost a year ago. And this letter, I wrote it to confront my husband, and to confront him about the issues we were having, and my inability to understand what was happening. And I spent about, I think, almost 2 months, editing that letter over and over and over to make sure that I got everything on paper properly, and I expressed everything as clearly as I possibly could, and I didn't miss anything. And that was back November, October. I started editing that letter like end of October, and I think I didn't finish, I think even like the week before I actually had it read to him. I was still working on it, and making, because of the way I talk, and making sure that I got everything properly on paper. And I had this letter read to him, and I think it was almost like a week before Christmas or 2 weeks before Christmas. To be honest, I can't remember, was it actually last year or the year before? No, I think it was last year, definitely last year. I can't actually remember. But I'll be on my computer, so with my computer I'll know the date for sure. But I hope you'll be patient enough to listen to me read this through. It's very painful actually for me, because oh yes, definitely it was a year ago. It was exactly a year ago. And I remember that because I had this letter read to him by our kids in December. And then that was December 2015. And then February 2016, that's when I came across the information on YouTube completely by accident, which led me to understand that I was married to a psychopath. I was married to a sociopath. I was married to a narcissist. And it's amazing for me to go back and read this and see just how much I understood, and how much I put together, and how much I understood, how right I was all along, that everything that I was thinking, everything that I was wondering, everything that I was, all the thoughts that I was having at the time, I was so correct. I was on the right path, but somehow, I just was missing just that small information. I was dealing with a pathological with somebody. I was dealing with somebody who had a pathological issue, and missing that information completely messed me up. And it's painful, and as well as it is strange, and to just go back and read this and to know that I was so close. And I remember that even at the end of, after the children had read this to him, while the kids were reading this, I was shaking. My whole body, I was shaking. I had so much emotion. I was sad. I was confused, and I was desperate. And I was just, my body was shaking. I was shivering, and I was cold. My body temperature just dropped. And you know what I did at the end of my kids reading this? Because you have to understand, I was not angry. I was just wanting a solution, I was not angry at him. And after the kids read this to him, he said absolutely nothing. And I just said to him, I have to do this. I mean, what do you have to say, or something like that? And, they said nothing. And I'm the one who actually, I went and sat on his lap while I was shaking, because I needed warmth. I was feeling just so cold. And he just proceeded to rub my back and my shoulders and said, "Oh, you're shivering. Oh, let me warm you up." And just the craziness of the entire thing is just, it's just unbelievable. So please bear in mind that while I'm reading this, I am talking about the different things that went on in our household over the years, and a lot of them as well refer to the time when he was coming and going, traveling back and forth. So bear that in mind, and the kids as well were young, and there are things that you might not understand, but that's okay, because when I wrote this, I wrote it obviously for him. So there are things that I mention and I talk about, I hope you will understand, but they were meant obviously for him and to the four of us, and as a family we understood perfectly what I was referring to. So you might miss that, but you might be able to catch on as well. So yeah, and as I am here in the motel all by myself, spending Christmas here, spending money that I really don't have, because let's face it, this is money that I'll need to start divorce proceedings, to start divorce proceedings, and I'm having to spend it here and in a motel, just to give me some space to think and to recharge myself, and and to help myself out. And him and the kids are in the house, and I'm not even far from them. They don't know that. And they're having a good time without me. And it hurts. And none of them has texted me or tried to contact me at all. And yes, they're going to say, well, me too, I haven't contacted them, but Anyway, so I'm missing some, I'm missing a part here, the beginning of that 7-page letter, but hopefully you'll be able to, I'm just trying to stick to what matters here. Over the years, I have watched you litter our home, scrunch papers and throw them all over the house, even beer caps, putting back in the fridge empty containers. Which, by the way, I have never seen you doing anything similar into the places where you live by yourself whenever the children and I come to visit you. What am I supposed to make of that? Am I supposed to not take notice at all? To my dismay, I observed the children emulating that same behavior. And over the years, I have not managed to make them stop it. With many more of those small, seemingly inconsequential events, which I have to witness over the years, and I can't help but wonder how my relationship with Tom and Lila has been affected. Now, please bear in mind that I've changed the name of my children to Tom and Lila. I am sure you remember me taking the kids out of their bedroom to sleep with me instead. This is something I had to do because you kept them awake during school nights. After I put them to bed, I would wake up late at night to find Tom and Lila either playing computer games or watching TV with you sitting nearby. And those were on school nights. After confronting you about how this was affecting them and just how wrong the situation was, I did notice you changed tactic to throw me off. You then started to go to bed and leave the kids to their own devices so that if I woke up, you could use the excuse that you didn't know, you were not there. So it wasn't your fault and it had nothing to do with you. And I know this to be a lie because back then you never went to bed early. So I knew that you went to bed much earlier than the children, just to use it as an excuse after waking them and leaving them, and you would go to bed. Every time an issue came up with the children, you would distance yourself from the situation through lies, denials, excuses, or say absolutely nothing while recreating the same situation as soon as you could. To me, your silence emboldened the kids, and to the children, your silence could only mean to the children that if daddy is saying nothing, it's because it's not a big deal. Therefore, mommy must be unreasonable, or mommy is just a mean person out to just prevent us from having fun. I kept refusing to think that you could be doing this on purpose because I could not grasp why you would want the kids to disobey me all the time. This passive-aggressive game you've been playing with me was a foreign concept to me until I heard about it on a radio show one day, not long ago. I would like to know if you ever took the time to consider how hard it must have been for the children growing up to discern intellectually and emotionally between our conflicting signals. Did you ever stop to think about the situation you were putting them in every time you left us? I was the one that was left with little choice every time, very little choice, but to try to curb the children's undesirable behaviors and the bad habits they picked up while you were visiting with us, which of course made them resent me more and more as time passed. I mean, how can they not? No, the other reason I took the kids back to my room to sleep was because Lila complained that the noises coming from your office was making her uncomfortable, scared, and those noises kept her awake at night. From our explanations, it was clear you were watching porn. When I asked you about it, you denied it, you dismissed me, and you carried on regardless. What was I supposed to do? I ask of you now. Problems in our home slowly but surely escalated. Went from late TV watching and to you giving your password to your computer to the children and then leave them unsupervised, to also you and your porn magazines all over your bedroom, and then to you pretending to not give them your iPad, and little Tom being exhausted in the morning. I mean, not just him, but Lila too. The children were always exhausted. And again, I would speak to you about those things and you will not change anything. Now, please bear in mind, for anybody that's new, my husband and I, we've always had separate bedrooms, so bear that in mind as well. And so he had porn magazine in his bedroom, and I did ask him, our kids are now growing, and this is just not, this is not right. I have a boy and a girl, and this is just not right. They're not small anymore. This has to stop. And again, I was completely ignored, until I found my kids reading those magazines, and some of them are just awful. And again, it just didn't click. Thinking about it now makes me feel awful, but back then all I did was just keep warning, and my final warning to him was, if every time from now I'm going to see those magazines, they're going to be thrown away. I'm just going to throw them away, don't expect me to have them around, so I'll just throw them away. But I mean, maybe any of you parents, maybe you've had that problem with your husband. I don't know. Let me know. I just feel completely awful, I'll go back to the letter. So again, the kids will wake up in the morning, they'll be exhausted. And again, that's another example of you causing major issues and tension between me and the kids every time you came back for a visit. All this for absolutely no good reason. Instead of unifying your small family, every time you came back, you always shattered the peace you found. And I kept thinking, you must not realize what you're doing. And because of that, I concentrated on reinstating rules and fixing things with the children after you left. Every time. Even the kids themselves did eventually notice that I was harder on them when you were back and after you were back. I also even eventually I had to take the step of not telling the children when you were coming back, because along with their excitement came rotten attitudes and behavior towards me. Every time they knew, every time I would tell them, Daddy's coming back, Daddy's probably is going to be coming back soon, or Daddy's coming back next week, or something like that. And, things started to happen with them. and things will just amplify. Problems and issue will just amplified when you arrived, and as the children grew older, things just got worse. Routines were ignored, total chaos usually ensued. The three of you started to talk in harsh voices and stopped when I came into the room. This that very specific behavior took me right back to when you and your family would do that to me, leaving me feeling bad about myself and confused. Tell me, way back then, who was I being mean to deserve such a treatment? When you took over buying clothes for the children, the control freak that I am supposed to be, don't remember objecting, but suddenly you went from buying them clothes to buying them stuff, to buying them other stuff you knew I did not approve of, and whenever I confronted you with doing that, you started hiding the stuff from me to give it to them later. You would depending on what the stuff were, you would aggressively pretend they were yours just to throw me off. You even went as far as buying them stuff you knew aggravated health issues that I have. Buying them scented stuff that you know I have a real problem with breathing. A situation you will say that can possibly mean that you're teaching them not to care for me, but I beg to differ. It always took about 6 weeks for everything to go back to normal. Then about 3 years ago, you started coming back almost every month. At first I didn't catch on that your purpose was to replenish the kids of their contraband and keep the chaos going. All this has led to my current situation with Lila, not even eating at home because she rather survive on the money you left her. My own daughter doesn't eat my food. And I'm sure if I ask both of you, you will deny it. No matter how disgusting, how scary, how unsafe, or how just plain stupid the kids have behaved over the years, you have always remained silent. And if pushed, you seem more comfortable getting upset with me rather than help me discipline the children or make the children understand that what they're doing is not right. The last time I confronted you about your behavior, you tried to make me understand that things would have been different. Things would have been different if I had not forced you to leave and take the job abroad. The problem with that scenario is that I possess a functioning memory, which allows me to recall, to deduce, and predict future situations based on past events. Just like I can perfectly recall when things got weird with your family, between your family and I, you pretended not to see or hear what was being said and done to me. When I reached out to you seeking your help, you got upset with me instead. It's the exact same behavior. How is it different from what you're doing now with the children? People have changed, the setting has changed, but you're acting exactly the same. You may have perfected the excuse of not being here and distancing yourself from problems, but I doubt very much any counselor, psychologist, or therapist would believe your innocence or your ignorance the way I I have. Because of similar patterns displayed over the years, I am finally able to understand how you can say I have a morbid personality when you're the one who's watching gory film, who enjoy watching gory films, horror films, and films that are movies that are full of horrors. I can see how you can call me a nag when it's obviously not even in my nature. It will be like saying I compete with you when that's not in my nature either. Admitting my lack of competitiveness is not even shameful to me because it doesn't take away from my ambitions. Now I can see how you have no qualm trying to shame me for not working when you know I've hardly had any chance to do so. And every time I've tried, we were moving and I had to give up what I was doing at the time. You have perniciously made me feel stupid for choosing to follow you around the world when I knew I had no education and no skills. What a life lesson. Thank you. I can see why, despite me constantly saying thank you and showing you my appreciation and gratitude for what you're doing for us as a family, you always complain I never say thank you. Now I understand why you never heard me over the years. It's because you've been too busy dismissing me while convincing yourself that you love me more because you are the provider of this family and my effort means nothing compared to what you're doing for us. Now I understand. The unfairness of my situation struck me one day while organizing our photo albums. I realized that if I was to perish, my children will only remember me as looking a mess, being depressed, being upset, being a party pooper, being unreasonable, being a mean woman, like you've made me out to be. Those albums will be proof enough of my inability to be close with my children. Tender moments of me and them hardly exists, except breastfeeding pictures and what looks like I am fighting them when in fact we were playing in those photos. Every tender moments captured are of you and them throughout the years, and yet it has always been me taking those nice pictures of the three of you. All of those capture moments only happened because I almost always had to beg for you to take part in those moments. And I had to start the begging very early to convince you to come with us and have fun with us. Now, the children are not aware of that. So if I had died, I am now certain you would never say any good thing about me to the children. This is what made me decide to do what I could to protect Tom and Lila's memory of me before something happens to me. This is why I decided to have the kids read this letter to you. They are old enough to remember this. They don't have to agree, but one day they will understand. Because I can't let something happen to me and my kids think of me in a way that is not real. I have watched you over the years pretend not to hear negative and unfair comments being thrown at me. I have never seen you defend me. If anything, you always join the offending side and then proceed to make me feel worse by trying to confuse me by pointing at my supposedly lack of humor. For example, when it comes to the children, and the children are unaware and they're very young, and that's completely normal, but it still affects me when I hear the children complain that the three of you always have to wait for me to get ready before we go anywhere, especially when they were a little bit younger. When all you had to do was to remind the children that me, the mother, I always take care of myself last, because it is the truth. The reason why sometimes I'm not on time, because I take care of everybody else before I take care of myself. And that is the simple truth. It would have cost you nothing to say that on my behalf, and it would have meant the world to me, rather than that gleeful smile you always put on your face in quiet agreement with them, which they see just like I see it, which embolden them further in their misconception of the entire situation. You once said you watched me complain for 2 hours straight, which, by the way, was not even true at all. At the time, because eventually it did happen, but at the time. You said it like it happened for no good reason. Just like one day you are going to say, I wrote a 7-page letter and I forced our kids to read it to you. You would probably try to insinuate that I did that because I was crazy and I had nothing better to do, because I was a nag. The fact is, my complaints, along with the 7-page letter, only happened because similar problems have happened enough times over the years for me to now be certain it's not just my imagination. This is just not a one-off, and those are just not innocent mistakes to continue to let them slide and not address them. And also, years of stupidity cannot be neatly wrapped in minutes when the consequences are devastating on so many levels. It does not take much to make teenagers feel like their lives are over. It is an all-consuming, difficult, and delicate situation, the best of time for all involved. I have tried very hard to keep our children centered. I had no reason to think that you, the father, would feel it necessary and normal to show them that it is all right to lie to their mother, to cheat, to steal, to scheme, to rebel, and to even ostracize me. You have encouraged them to mistrust and to dismiss everything I say to them, like you do. And by the same token, showing your son how to treat women and possibly his future family. On many occasions, you have verbally expressed and physically shown your disinterest to do things with us. It became plain to me that parenting, as far as you are concerned, is about choosing when it is convenient for you. All I could do back then was to get on with what I knew I had to do. The children had needs that could not wait. Recently, I was stunned to witness with the children how you blatantly lied that I have been preventing you from speaking to the children on the phone over the years while you were traveling, when the reality is